My grandmother could make $1 do the work of 5, and she did it with little tricks, the kind nobody writes down anymore. Ways of cleaning, fixing, and saving that she learned in hard times and never let go of. I've got 25 of them to show you today. Little household secrets that saved our grandparents a small fortune over a lifetime, and every one of them still works just as well today. Number 17 is the one my grandmother used every single week, and it saved her a fortune on one thing most folks overpay for. Number 9 costs you absolutely nothing and makes an old thing look brand new. And number 4, well, once you see it, you'll wonder why nobody ever told you. So pour yourself a cup of coffee and sit with me a while. If you like the old ways of doing things, go ahead and subscribe. I put a new one up every week. Let's count them down. 25 hidden household tricks that saved our grandparents a fortune. Number 25. Newspaper for streak-free windows. Long before folks were buying rolls of paper towels, my grandmother cleaned every window in the house with old newspaper. She'd crumple up a sheet, dip it in a little vinegar and water, and wipe the glass clean. The paper didn't leave lint or streaks the way a rag did. It came out clear as crystal, and it cost nothing because the newspaper was already read and done. One trick, and she never bought a window cleaner in her life. Number 24. A bar of soap for sticking drawers. When a wooden drawer stuck and dragged and fought you every time you opened it, my grandfather didn't oil it or sand it. He took a dry bar of soap and rubbed it along the runners, the wooden tracks the drawer slides on. The soap left a waxy coating that let the drawer glide like new. Same trick worked on a sticking window or a squeaky door. A bar of soap that cost pennies fixed what most folks would pay a handyman for. Number 23. Salt to keep a cutting board clean. A wooden cutting board soaks up smells and stains something awful. My grandmother kept hers fresh with a handful of coarse salt and half a lemon. She'd sprinkle the salt on the board, scrub it with the cut side of the lemon, and let it sit a few minutes before rinsing. The salt scoured off everything stuck on, and the lemon left it smelling clean. No special cleaner, no scrubbing pads, just 2 things already in the kitchen. Number 22. Baking soda to freshen a whole room. Before there were sprays and plug-ins for every room, there was a box of baking soda. My grandmother kept an open box in the icebox, another in the closet, and she'd sprinkle a little on the rugs before she swept. It quietly soaked up odors instead of just covering them with perfume. A box that cost next to nothing did the work of a whole shelf of air fresheners. Number 21. Vinegar to cut grease and lime. If there was one bottle my grandmother could not run a kitchen without, it was plain white vinegar. She used it to cut grease off the stove, to shine up the faucets, to clear the lime buildup off the kettle, and to freshen a smelly drain. A whole gallon cost about what a single fancy cleaner does now, and it did a dozen jobs. There was nothing in that kitchen a little vinegar couldn't tackle. Number 20. A rubber band for a stripped screw. When a screw was worn smooth, and the screwdriver just spun without biting, my grandfather had a trick that worked every time. He'd lay a wide rubber band flat over the head of the screw, then press the screwdriver into it. The rubber filled the stripped grooves and gave the driver something to grip. That screw came right out. A penny rubber band saved him from drilling out a screw the hard way. Number 19. Toothpaste to polish and hide scratches. Plain white toothpaste, not the gel kind, was my grandmother's secret polish. She used it to shine up the faucets, to clean the fog off old headlights, and to rub out little scratches on a wood table or a coffee mug. A dab on a soft rag, a little rubbing, and the scratch would all but disappear. A tube of toothpaste did the work of 3 or 4 different products. Number 18. A cold tea bag and cloth to revive dark wood. When the dark wood furniture started looking dull and dry, my grandmother brewed a pot of strong black tea, let it cool, and wiped the wood down with a soft cloth dipped in it. The tea darkened the little scuffs and brought the shine back to the grain. It cost her a couple of used tea bags. That old dresser looked 10 years younger by supper time. Number 17. Line drying to save a fortune. Here it is. The one my grandmother used every single week. She never owned a clothes dryer, and she never wanted one. She hung the wash out on a line in the yard, or on a rack by the stove in winter. The sun and the air did the work for free, and it was the single biggest saving in the whole house, because a dryer is one of the hungriest machines you own. Her clothes lasted longer too, because the heat of a dryer is what wears them out. A length of rope and a bag of clothespins saved her a small fortune, year after year. Number 16. Reusing cooking water. My grandmother never poured anything down the drain if it still had a use. The water she boiled potatoes in went into her bread dough. The starch made it rise better. The water from cooking vegetables went into the next pot of soup for flavor. Even the water she rinsed a milk bottle with went to the garden. Nothing that could be used twice was ever thrown out once. Number 15. Cornstarch to lift a grease stain. When a splatter of grease hit her good tablecloth, my grandmother didn't panic, and she didn't run out for a stain remover. She covered the spot with a spoonful of cornstarch or plain talcum and let it sit an hour or two. The powder drew the grease right up out of the cloth. Then she brushed it off, and the stain went with it. A spoonful of cornstarch saved many a good shirt and many a tablecloth. Number 14. Aluminum foil to sharpen scissors. When the scissors got dull and started chewing the paper instead of cutting it, my grandmother folded a sheet of aluminum foil over several times and cut through it a dozen strokes. Something about the foil honed the edge right back. Same went for a dull pair of kitchen shears. It cost her one small piece of foil, and it saved buying a new pair of scissors. Number 13. A slice of bread to soften brown sugar. When the brown sugar in the cupboard went hard as a brick, my grandmother dropped a slice of fresh bread into the bag and closed it up overnight. By morning, the sugar had drawn the moisture out of the bread and gone soft again. Same trick kept cookies soft in the jar. A heel of bread nobody wanted saved a whole bag of sugar from the bin. Number 12. Coffee grounds for the garden and the drain. My grandmother never threw out her used coffee grounds. She worked them into the soil around her plants, where they fed the ground for free. She scattered them in the garden to keep the pests off. And a spoonful down a sluggish drain with some hot water helped keep it clear. The grounds were already paid for with the morning coffee, and they did 3 more jobs before they were done. Number 11. A pillowcase to clean the ceiling fan. Dusting a ceiling fan usually meant knocking all that dust down onto everything below. My grandmother had a better way. She slipped an old pillowcase right over each blade, then pulled it back, and the dust came off inside the case instead of falling on the floor. Then she shook it out in the yard. One old pillowcase, and not a speck of dust on the furniture. Number 10. Chalk to stop tarnish and pull damp. My grandmother kept a few sticks of plain white chalk in with the good silver, and a few more in the toolbox. The chalk drew the moisture out of the air, which kept the silver from tarnishing and the tools from rusting. A tied-up bundle of chalk in a damp closet did the same. A box of chalk from the 5 and dime protected things worth 100 times its price. Number 9. Steam to lift a dent in wood or carpet. Here's number 9, the one that makes an old thing look new for nothing. When a heavy chair left deep dents in the carpet, my grandmother laid a damp cloth over the spot and pressed a warm iron on it a moment. The steam swelled the fibers right back up and the dent vanished. The same trick lifted a dent in soft wood. It cost her nothing but a minute, and the mark was simply gone. Number 8. A jar to save bacon grease. There was always a jar by my grandmother's stove, and in it went every bit of bacon grease. She'd pour it in warm, let it set, and keep it right there. That grease fried the eggs, flavored the beans, greased the pan for cornbread, and started 100 meals. She never bought as much cooking oil as most folks, because the grease she already had did the work, and gave it more flavor besides. Number 7. Old cloth for everything. My grandmother never bought a paper towel or a dust rag in her life. When a shirt or a towel or a bed sheet was too worn to use, it didn't go in the bin, it got cut into squares. Those rags cleaned the counters, dusted the furniture, wiped up spills, and washed the car. When one got too dirty, she washed it and used it again. A worn-out shirt gave years more service as a stack of free rags. Number 6. A dab of clear polish to stop a run and a loose screw. My grandmother kept a little bottle of clear nail polish for things that had nothing to do with nails. A dab on the start of a run in her stocking stopped it from spreading. A drop on a loose screw or a button thread held it tight. A touch on a frayed shoelace end kept it from unraveling. That little bottle mended a dozen small things that most folks would have thrown out. Number 5. ice to lift furniture dents in carpet and to loosen gum. When something sticky got ground into the rug or a tablecloth, my grandmother reached for an ice cube. She'd hold the ice on the gum or the wax until it went hard and brittle. Then it chipped right off instead of smearing. Same trick got candle wax off the good linens. A single ice cube saved many a rug from being ruined. Number 4. Baking soda and vinegar to open a slow drain. Here it is, number 4. The one you'll wish you'd known years ago. When a drain ran slow, my grandmother never reached for a harsh, expensive bottle. She poured a good spoonful of baking soda down the drain, followed it with a cup of plain vinegar, and let it foam and work a few minutes. Then she flushed it with a kettle of hot water. 9 times out of 10 that drain ran clear again for pennies, with 2 things she already had in the cupboard. Number 3. A candle stub to fix a stubborn zipper and a squeak. When a zipper stuck and dragged and wouldn't budge, my grandmother rubbed the teeth with the stub of an old candle. The wax let it glide right up. The same candle stub quieted a squeaky drawer and helped a nail slide into hard wood without splitting it. A worn-out candle nobody would light saved many a good coat and many a pair of trousers from the rag bag. Number 2. Baking soda to scrub a burnt pot clean. When a pot got scorched and burnt on the bottom, most folks would soak it for days or throw it out. Not my grandmother. She sprinkled a good layer of baking soda over the burnt part, added just enough water to cover it, and let it simmer on the stove a few minutes. Then the burnt crust lifted right off with a wooden spoon. A scorched pot that looked ruined came clean for a few cents. Number 1. A leftover ends jar. Waste absolutely nothing. And number 1. The trick behind all the others. My grandmother kept a jar or a bag in the freezer for odds and ends. The last of the vegetables, the ends of the bread, a bone from the roast, the bits too small to serve, and when it was full, it all went into a pot, a soup, a stock, a stew that fed the family for free. That was the whole secret of how she saved a fortune. She simply never wasted a thing, not a scrap, not a drop, not a penny. Everything had one more use in it, and she always found it. So here's my challenge to you. Pick just one of these this week and try it. The newspaper on the windows, the bar of soap on the drawer, the baking soda on the burnt pot. See for yourself how well the old ways still work. Because our grandparents didn't have much, but they knew how to make what little they had go a long, long way. And there's a real freedom in knowing how to do the same. Tell me down in the comments which trick you're going to try. And if your grandmother had one of these she swore by, tell me about it. I read every one. These aren't just old tricks, friends. They're proof that a little know-how is worth more than a full wallet. I'm Earl. I'll see you next week.